the snowy mountains of central British Columbia to you listening around the world. This, my friends, is Spaced Out Radio. Welcome to 2020. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters, welcoming you to tonight's show, including Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. If you want to take a listen to our archives, they are free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. We got great books we read tonight. Join the Space Travelers for $5 a month, and Captain Shirk has you updated on the SOR Newswire. Tonight's show is brought to you by Chive Charities. Help make the world 10% happier by donating to Chive Charities today. You can find them on our website. Alan Greenfield is a longtime student of esoteric spirituality and Gnosticism, a study he began in 1960. A past member of the British Society of Psychical Research and NICAP member since 1960 as well. Alan has twice been named winner of Ufologist of the Year Award from the National UFO Conference. More recently, Alan has been put back in the public spotlight because of a book he wrote 26 years ago. It's called Secret Cypher of the UFOnauts. Alan's popularity was brought back to the surface again because of his book and the new Docu-Series Hellier. Then at the bottom of hour number 3, I will bring you the SOR Newswire, brought to you by Paranoia Magazine. Mr. Alan Greenfield, always a pleasure to have someone of your stature on this show. Thank you so much for joining us on this January 1st. How are you?
Apparently I've been invisible for the last 20 years, but really I've been in the esoteric world, and that's definitely a closed circle. However, the complete Secret Cipher of the UFOnauts, the current edition from Paranoia Press, which is same as Paranoia Magazine and Paranoia, well, all kinds of Paranoia, is selling really well for, it's the combined Secret Cipher of the UFOnauts, as published by the late great Illuminat Press, and Secret Rituals of the Men in Black. So you get a twofer there and a new introduction by Olaf Phillips.
Yeah, Olaf is a really, really good friend of this show, and I know he's listening. Hi, Olaf. Always a pleasure. You got a fantastic beard as well, buddy. You know, Alan, when you started into this field so many years ago, you were a pioneer of writing about this, about the occult, trying to get everything going. What led you down this road? Why did you take this path in life?
It's really difficult to say. I think back, and I can point to a couple of things. One goes way, way back, but I can date it, not because I could date it at the time. I was 6 years old, but because it was a famous date that I can look at retroactively. My folks were prone to make a July visit to Miami Beach every year. So the month of July was spent in Miami, and I remember that my father was saying, hey, they've seen flying saucers over the Pentagon and the Capitol. And of course, that was the famous July 1952 UFO wave that set in motion a lot of things, including Project Blue Book and the CIA panel that reviewed the supposed threat to U.S. national security, which is, you have to really get into the headset of the 1950s to fully comprehend that. But why on earth would I remember that? You know, I was 6. I should have been thinking about my sand pail on the beach. But that just perked my ears up, just like I was born to this stuff. And then in 1960, I read, this is where the Synchronicities start, at least that I'm aware of. I read an article about UFOs. I don't even remember the name of the magazine. I just remember it was digest size, so it may have been Fate, I don't know, but not something I had read theretofore. And shortly thereafter, it had the address of NICAP, which in those days was 1536 Connecticut Avenue, Washington, 6 D.C., USA. I don't write them there now. They're not there anymore. But Actually, I got thrown out of that office once, but that's a story in and of itself. It has more to do with Gene Steinberg than me. But in any case, I saw 2 UFOs at the same time while riding in front of the grammar school that I was attending. And I wrote back up, and they invited me to become an associate member. And that same year, 1960, I joined the Mystic Arts Book Society, which then anything that wasn't nailed down with copyright that was related to the metaphysical and the occult, they republished under the University Books moniker. And so I was very well schooled in the occult even then. I read Fate magazine, was a subscriber to that. That started the same year and stayed on their list for maybe 15 years, as long as their original publisher, Kurt Fuller, was there. And that exposed me to a lot of paranormal research, and it treed out to other things. My benefactor and sponsor in some ways, and probably the most important teacher in the magical area, although he slides over into the UFO area too. Michael Bertio in Chicago always ran a full-page ad in Fate magazine, so I suppose that was indirectly responsible for my getting in touch with him. So it all came together very early in life. I was maybe 13, maybe 14 at the time. And at that time, Ray Palmer of Sainted Memory was publishing this little magazine called Flying Saucers, which had a section called Saucer Club News, where you could run free ads for local flying saucer groups. And it happens that they're spontaneously developed all over North America, really, a group of people that were very young, roughly my age at that time, in their early to mid-teens. And we used the Saucer Club News to kind of bring us together and form local groups and get together for conventions, and that led to the National UFO Conference, which started in 1964, and I think still holds the record for the longest running convention in the UFO field. It sort of was the counterpoint to the Giant Rock type convention, which was more contactee-oriented. We were more prove it to me and I'll believe it oriented. But, we weren't sticklers. We were, Laura Mundo, who was an Adamski follower, was one of our regulars. But we had Jean Duplantier from Willowdale, Ontario. We had Rick Hilberg from Cleveland, Ohio, and Dave Halpern, who paradoxically was the head of the New Jersey Association of Aerial Phenomena, but he lived in Philadelphia. Figured that one out on a map. And me, and we got together for a reunion just a couple of years ago, and we're thankfully virtually all of us still around and still kicking and still interested. So that's the story in a nutshell. So I'll say good night. It's been fun, Dave.
Well, I can see that, and I can hear it in your voice. As you started to go down this road into the occult, were you ever at a point where you just kind of said, this is way too strange or way too evil or way too connected to things that shouldn't be around, so to speak? Like, there's always that tipping point of whether or not you're going to jump off the bridge, and you jump both feet into the occult. But did you ever have that point where you thought, uh-oh, what am I doing?
The only time that was true was much later when I made I was always an independent, and I made the decision to join the corporate OTO, and I spent 20 years in that. And it took me a long time to figure out that what I was in effect a cult, and it takes a long time to get out of a cult once you're in it. I mean, you can, get thrown out or quit in a minute, but it continues to haunt me, and I think their approach is totally wrong because it's structured around the notion of hierarchy, and hierarchy sort of tends to make people who are yes men or yes women rather than people who are independently inquiring into these mysteries. Other than that, I have the oddest possible take. I'm only afraid when there aren't ghosts out there. I really have no fear of the, I was going to say supernatural, but that probably is an overstatement. The paranormal, I do worry when there isn't something paranormal going on. So I've had one or two bad moments, but in all of that, whatever it is, I think it's more years than I care to think about, 60 years or something like that. I just don't have the fear that most people do. So, I'm afraid of fill in the blank, yetis, ghosts, the abominable snowman, whatever it is. No, I'm not really. I mean, if I saw a tiger that was on the loose, I probably would be afraid of that. I'm not, foolhardy. But I can't think of instances where I have felt personally, I mean, I've always been forearmed in these things, knowing, what I was getting into, and with the exception of the corporate OTO, I really knew what I was doing, did my research in advance, and none of that scares me. What scares me is when I'm riding my bicycle and the local bus company, the bus comes around the corner at 11 million miles per hour, and I have to slam on my brake. That scares me. I don't want to die in a stupid way, and that would be definitely a stupid way to go. But other than that, no, I'm for all this stuff. One of the things that struck me about the crew on Hellier is that they're taking a fresh look, and while I am very free with my advice when asked, I see them taking their own direction, but I do worry that, if they invoke Pan, I have invoked Pan, and Pan has appeared. And quite literally on Arabia Mountain, just outside of Atlanta. Well, actually, with the sprawl of the city now, I guess it's inside of Atlanta. But if you're just hearing things or feeling them or using mechanical or electronic devices to communicate, that kind of puts an insulation between you and the phenomena that you're dealing with. But if something appears unscheduled, as it were, and you're not prepared for it, it's a game stopper for a lot of people. And I'm very hopeful that they are gonzo enough to just keep after it until they reach a point where I think, and this is my hope, and I suspect they are listening, that they are the next generation of people who will be doing cross-discipline research and not bound in to say, I'm in parapsychology, I'm not interested in the occult. I'm in the occult, I'm not interested in UFOs. I'm a UFO researcher, and I'm not interested in Yetis. I'm interested in Sasquatch, but I'm not interested in the abominable snowman or the Loch Ness monster. You get this huge amount of resistance from one or the other of these areas. And it at first was a mystery to me why it wasn't obvious that these were all aspects of the same monster, if you want to call it that, a kind of a hydra sort of thing that has many heads, but has one body and one underlying nature and many facts in common. There have always been a few people that have seen that. John Keel, for all his gullibility, had an edge on that. Gray Barker saw it for what it was, but Gray is not taken seriously by a lot of people. He was a good friend of mine, but he was a prankster, and when he and Jim Moseley would get together and get into an altered state of consciousness, as it were, they would make prank phone calls and do prank things, and along with having a serious interest in these things. And some people just don't get the humor of what they did. Keel was one. Keel had absolutely no sense of humor whatsoever. But so he was the victim of some of their prank calls. And I think if you've seen the movie with Richard Gere of the Mothman Prophecy, which I think was probably written a lot earlier than it was published, because he gave a speech here that I was going to say I sponsored. My father sponsored. And we flew him down here, and he gave the speech in Atlanta. And then instead of going back to wherever he was living at that time, I think it was New York, he said, I'm going to get a car and drive through West Virginia. And the rest, as they say, is history. He wrote this really, 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 really long book called Operation Trojan Horse, about 4 times the size of the book that was published under that name. And he told me at some point that his publisher said, we can't publish a 2,000-page book. Nobody will read it. So over the next 5 years or so, there were several additional books that have material that I suspect were originally meant to be in one very long volume. And I think the Mothman Prophecies probably dates from the late 1960s, so it's almost in real time in his adventures in West Virginia. Of course, that was when you had the Mothman and the bridge disaster and a lot of UFO cases and a lot of Man in Black cases. I would say if you wanted a well-rounded approach to that, you read John Keel's book and then immediately read Gray Barker's book, The Silver Bridge, but read it twice because you can miss the point there. There's an underlying point, and a lot of people, even in ufology, hardcore ufology, people didn't get anything out of that book. He circulated it first in draft form, and I encouraged him. I said, Gray, you're on it. And he said, yeah, the secret is sex and saucers. It's the same thing. The couples that first saw Mothman were out necking or petting in the ill-famed TNT area, and that energy draws things in as if it were something that they vicariously got attached to. Or, alternately, the Pentecostal holy roller type of guilt that one might have in West Virginia at that time, and probably even today in the more rural sections. That's a very hard word for Southerners. Rural, anything with a double R gets you all out of joint.
Every time. Every time.
Every time. Yeah, I worked on it in front of a mirror. I said, rural. Come on, Alan, don't sound like the hick that you are. Rural. Oh, I come from a rural area.
What's it? I got to ask you this, as we only got about 3.5 minutes before we go to break at the bottom of the hour. What's it like invoking Pan?
Scary for most. Interesting. What happened? Do you want to know the specific? It's kind of a long story. You might want to do it on the other side of the break, but I'll be glad to tell you my experience.
Why don't we start it here and we'll move from there.
Some people think I'm long-winded. Now, I myself think that I'm just, bringing forth pearls of wisdom, and, they come out as they do. But in any case, We have just concluded a 15-year experiment on Arabia Mountain, which is this monadnock that is billions of years old. It's called a mountain, but it's really not. It's a solidified magma made of quartz, crystal, and mica, and granite. And it's a power spot, and we have used it for the last 15 years to do all kinds of magical workings, and I call it collectively the Great Arabia working. Back in the early 1980s, we got a small group of people together to go to Mount Arabia at night on solstices and equinoxes, winter solstice being a big challenge. And we'd light a bonfire on top, and we would have we would go off each individually to do a vision quest. I believe it was the second year we were out there. That would be 1982 in the fall equinox, which would be roughly September 21st, 1982. Easy date to remember because it's the equinox, so I don't have to remember the exact date. But in any case, there were like 6 of us out there. And before we went, our plan was for me to do the hymn to the star goddess aloud. And this guy, who I don't know where he is or what has become of him, but a great orator, as it turns out, named Ken King, did the hymn to Pan, written by Aleister Crowley. Not my favorite author, and not my favorite poet, but it's his best poem. And his reading knocked the socks off of my reading. I mean, it was just spooky beyond words. And when we got out there, it was 9 p.m. or so. Last rays of the sun just setting on the horizon. And this was still an area where virtually nobody lived, and most people who lived on the farms in the area were unaware of this mountain because of complex things having to do with how old it is and the fact that at the base of it, although it's a bald mountain, is used for one of the what were they called? The movies about the Pet Cemetery movies, because it's a very, very spooky place. In fact, we found out that the locals said, "Oh, the Satanists are going up there on the quarterly celebrations of the Satanic group," and we looked around for the Satanic group until we realized we are the Satanic group. And I'll tell you the rest of it. It was Winnie the Pooh and the Woozle is what it was. We were looking
Alan,
for
I'm going to get you to hold on right there because we're going to go to break at the bottom of the hour here. Alan Greenfield is our guest tonight. What's it like to invoke Pan and have it happen? We'll learn right after this on Spaced Out Radio. Stay tuned.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose Beard Oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know little brother is watching.
Finish off your weekend and kick off your new week with me, Everett Themer, right here on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to bring you great guests, a little bit of snark, and plenty of information to think about. But don't worry, there's going to be plenty of woo as well. We are going to hit everything in the paranormal and supernatural, including the odd psychic Sundays. So tune us in on Sunday, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a Space Traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docu-series featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and Bigfoot in the forest. Truth seekers like Steve Bassett, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Richard Dolan, as well as others all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Welcome back to the second half hour of Spaced Out Radio. Tonight I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair at a snowy SOR headquarters. Reminder to all of you, if you've missed portions of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. You can join the Space Travelers Club for $5 a month, and Captain Shirk has your SOR Newswire updated daily. Alan Greenfield is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're looking into the occult, how it ties into what is going on today. Of course, his book, Secret Cypher of the UFOnauts, has been very highly publicized recently, especially in 2019 with the release of Hellier and Hellier 2. We'll get into that in hour number 2, but right now we bring Mr. Greenfield in because he's going to tell us about how he invoked Pan.
So we had this group, to recap briefly, that it was kind of centered on the Carlos Castaneda books, and we were doing vision quests at night on Arabian Mountain until it became illegal to. They closed the mountain at sunset now, but back in the day, it was ideal for doing these rituals. So I recited Frigga Kod's Hymn to the Star Goddess, and this guy Ken recited the Hymn to Pan, written by Aleister Crowley, and his recitation, I thought, this is much more evocative or invocative, as the case may be. Well, I guess it was evocative. And we can expect something very interesting on the mountain. So we got out there right around sunset and built our bonfire at the top to scare the locals. That isn't the reason we built the bonfire, but apparently it did scare them. And then we each wandered off to do our vision quest. Well, a couple of hours later, I had a minor experience of falling through a portal, and a number of other minor things, but that's the sort of thing that was typical of these. But when I went back to the bonfire, I noticed that everyone who was present, I think there were 6 of us, yeah, I think so, there was one missing, a guy named Hilly, now with a PhD, actually. I think he's in Alaska now, but still in touch with him. He just wasn't there. So everybody else seemed to be riveted on whatever. I think they were dancing around the fire or doing whatever. So I wandered off in the dark. We didn't have flashlights. That was just not, I guess that was considered uncool for this type of working. And I wandered to this place that we later called Consecration Rock in the later series of working I mentioned before the break. And under that rock, I saw a figure. And I got closer, and all I could see were these red glowing eyes. Well, the only other person that I knew of to be there was this guy, Hilly. And I said, Hilly, is that you? And he came out, there was just enough ambience from the ambient light, whatever, that I could make him out once he got out from under this little ledge. And his eyes were coal red, and his ears had become pointed. It was not like Mr. Spock. It was more like Mr. Devil. And his feet were no longer visible. I didn't see hooves, but I saw Pan. He had that lower body, which was more animalistic, and I said, but I could recognize him as Hilly transformed into Pan. And I immediately realized, that this was a kind of possession. And I said, Hilly, are you all right? And he said the following, and I quote from memory, but accurately, no. It was much longer than that, but he indicated his displeasure at his transformation. So I said, would you like me to call your brother? His brother was there, the late Bishop Oscar Sampson Orion, and he said, yes. I said, if I go away for a minute, is that going to be okay? No. So I started yelling for his brother, and he came down, and we were all pretty buff at that time. Sam was a weightlifter. I was in good condition myself. Hilly was this little guy. He was much shorter than anybody else that was there, except the young lady that was there, who eventually became my wife. But in any case, she was 95 pounds, so she didn't do anything. But the other two guys came, and we got him up to the bonfire so we could talk and assess him. And he was panicked completely. He had the look. The glow was not artificial. It was actually glowing. His ears were distended in that way, and no one had expected this. And it took the several guys there just to hold him down, because he was trying to eat his own hands. And he was just, completely, he was physically far stronger than he was in his normal state. And when I say far stronger, I mean stronger than 4 adult men larger than him, having to hold him back. We made the decision after about 4 hours that I was the odd person out on this. I said, they wanted to take him home. And I said, I don't think that'd be a good idea. He's anchored to the mountain. Let's see if this wears off at sunrise. And they outvoted me, and we put him in a car. And I was sitting in the back seat with the young lady who was with us, and was with us for some years after that. And he began to try and accost her, I would say, was either bent on eating her or raping her. And again, we had to pull over to the side, and 4 guys had to hold him back. And he had yet to say a word in a human language. He was just making sounds, and then he looks at this girl, and I'll never forget, he does this double take, like he's beginning to have some human qualities. He said, "You're not even Denise," referring to his then paramour. And we basically held him down, got him home. His brother was a graduate of the Atlanta School of Massage, so we got him on the massage table, and he was working on him for the next 2 hours till the sun came up. And he had, and still has, to the best of my knowledge, 0 memory of any of that happening. Lit the fire, he wandered off, and no memory. He was possessed. So, yo Pan, Pan, yo Pan. Play with Pan is a reason that Pan is the first syllable of panic, because panic comes from Pan.
Well,
how's that?
Well, I could tell you right this, I'm not going to be conjuring him up anytime soon. That just seems a little too wacky for me. I'll stick to aliens and greys. That just seems a little bit more normal than conjuring up spirits like that.
But is there a difference? I don't know. I think, they're just different permutations of the same thing. If we had instead been reading something like some induction of aliens the hymn of the star goddess actually is inviting the star goddess, meaning the goddess of Sirius, which is not necessarily a deity, it's a form, to come down. That's an invocation of UFOs. My friends at the Light Lines outfit in Kentucky, most of them have gone on to their reward. Really good people, Don Elkins and Carla Ruckert, who were really put together the raw material, which had its 2 or 3 years of fame, and the person whose name I can't remember, but who is still running the Light Lines group. I knew them very well. Was with them when they were working. They were basically trance mediums who made no claims about the material that emerged in their trance mediumship. They simply recorded it. They also developed a technique for contacting, as I prefer to call them, ultra-terrestrials, that they could teach to anybody, they claimed, and I never heard anyone say that, they had taken their course and worked their technique and it didn't work. Apparently it worked on everybody. I didn't do it because, I only have 1 foot in this world anyway in the best of times, so I didn't feel like I needed that additional, They say, well, do you take LSD or DMT? I said, no, I'm living in that world anyway. I don't really need any enhancers. They'll probably cause me indigestion. Really. But they were communicating in the same way that the Mark Probert circle, the inner circle so-called, in the 1940s that predicted the UFO wave from Borderland Sciences, which was run by a guy who had 1 foot in ufology and the other foot in magic and mysticism, Meade Lane. They were talking about flying saucers as early as 1944 when they were first organized. So long before Kenneth Arnold. No kidding. And in fact, they still exist, and they do have an online presence, and they have a great archive thing. You can look up what Meade Lane was writing. He did a book called The Coming of the Guardians, which I don't think was published until 1953, but much of the material was from the trance channel sessions with Mark Probert in the mid-1940s. And The Coming of the Guardians is sort of like what the title is about. It's about ether ships coming and being described in very much the same way UFOs were later described. I mean, the term UFO didn't come around until, I think, Ed Ruppelt's reign at Project Blue Book, but it was flying saucers until then. But they used the term disk, and ether ship was there, I think, closer to the truth than any of the terminology that's associated with craft, because I don't think these things are craft in the sense that anything that we do are craft. They move in ways that defy our laws of physics. Therefore, they're not subject to our laws of physics. And what could that be? Well, ether ship is as good an explanation as any, because ether, a discredited 19th century physics idea, has been reintroduced under another name because we discovered that the universe is mostly made of dark energy, dark matter. That's somewhat disputed, but it's the prevailing opinion now, enough so that only the skeptics of it are marginalized. And I don't know, I cannot distinguish between the notion of the ether of space as it was defined in the 19th century and dark energy as it's defined now. It's the same thing. So that gives rise to all kinds of things like the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, which is getting pretty far into the weeds, and I don't think you want to go there, but just suffice to say there's good scientific underpinning for thinking that what we're dealing with all of these phenomena, whether it's the Loch Ness Monster or Yetis in Tibet, are probably of the same general type. The fact that they're investigated separately creates an artificial impression that these are different subjects. And I think that is totally artificial. And the fact that people become jealous of their subject. I'm a cryptozoologist. I'm not interested in the occult. Well, that's a different order of being altogether.
Where do you think these monsters come from, Alan?
That's the $64 question, isn't it? I think my best guess is, first of all, we don't see them as they actually are. Our senses, I was mentioning this to you before the program, our five senses, the regular five that we use every day, presumably, developed in an evolutionary recent time from a biological evolution period of time. We've only had come down from the trees and started hunting and being hunted a couple of hours ago. From the standpoint of geological time, much longer. From the standpoint of cosmological time, not even a drop in the ocean. So we have these senses that allow us to feed, to eat, and to avoid being eaten, to hunt, to reproduce, and that's it. That's all our senses are honed for. They're not honed for seeing beings from a different, that have evolved using a different set of physical principles. So if we see one, what do we see? Well, the best clue I've ever seen is in a little book that is public domain. If anybody wants to, it's online, called Flatland, where two-dimensional beings are imagined to see a three-dimensional object and what they would see. And of course, they don't see the third dimension. They just see edges. It's kind of like Plato's shadows on the wall of a cave, or like the story of the blind men touching different parts of an elephant and saying an elephant is its trunk, an elephant is its leg, an elephant is its tail, because they're touching different aspects, but there's only one elephant there. And I think that we're experiencing something very much like that. Our eyes and ears and other senses are sensing that something is there. And then it registers according to certain biological traits that we have, but also the psyche of the individual. And that's why we have so many variations in reports. The things that are least varied are things like the grays, which are almost amorphous. They don't really have any particular form. And if you look long enough, they will dissolve on you. I can tell you with great certainty. It doesn't mean they don't exist. It does mean that what you're seeing is sort of a tabula rasa, a blank slate. And so I think they're coming from some realm of reality that is so different from ours that we're unable to resolve them as they truly are. Thus, you get things like the Whitley Strieber, his notion that these are, also Jacques Vallée, that these are deceptive beings. That I don't know that they are necessarily deceptive intentionally. They may be, they may not be. But I do know that our senses betray us when we try to think about what it is that we're seeing. And again, in these different areas, if occultists would put their heads together with ufologists, they might come up with a more coherent understanding of what they are. But monsters are monsters. There's a great line in the movie Forbidden Planet. Monsters, Jim, monsters from the id. What is the id? It's that primal self that recognizes things but is very primitive and responds to things in a primitive sort of way. If you see it as a monster, it's going to look like a monster. Whatever monster there is in your head, something is there. You have to acknowledge that it's there, but it's not what you think you're seeing. In fact, if you have 5 people in the room and they're all seeing it, chances are they're all seeing something slightly different, even though we have the same, set of senses and the consensus reality that we live in day-to-day life. Am I being lucid, or am I going way off in the weeds here?
No, I think you're doing just fine. As we got about 2.5 minutes here before we got to go to break at the top of the hour. Alan Greenfield is our guest. I want to kind of shift topics here because in hour 2, I want to talk about Secret Cipher of the UFOnauts or UFOnauts or
UFOnauts.
UFOnauts.
Old line ufologists call it UFOnauts. Just don't call
UFOnauts.
I've heard some person use the term ufology, and that just has the word fool in the middle of it, and I'd rather just stay away from that one. But the ufologist
I don't blame
UFO. UFO was the original pronunciation of the term, so, study of ufology.
Right. So when it comes to that and your popularity that you have kind of been thrust into with Hellier these days, I mean, there's a lot of questions that many people have after watching this great docu-series by the team of Greg and Dana Newkirk, Connor Randall, Carl Pfeiffer, Tyler Strand, John Tenney. I mean, there is a lot of love for you, and everybody is wondering, well, who the hell is this Alan Greenfield guy, and why have I not read this book yet?
Well, they should go out and buy the book and read it, and buy it anyway, even if you're not going to read it. Give it to a friend, but yeah, it's doing very well. I mean, when Olaf first came to me with the notion of publishing the 2 books together, I thought that was a good idea. But I said, look, this book has been in print for, decades. You may not get very many sales. Well, doggy, along comes Hellier, and it's outselling my more current book, God Never Does the Same Thing Twice. So I guess God never does the same thing twice, but apparently Secret Cypher of the UFOnauts does it twice, thrice, and 4 times. So
nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that at all. Well, let's learn about Hellier when we come back and your role in helping decipher these weird clues that are just captivating everybody. Yes, Alan Greenfield is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. We're talking Hellier next. And we might even try and find out who Terry Wrist is. Terry, are you listening tonight? Let us know. We'll be back with more Spaced Out Radio right after this.
Are you having encounters with the paranormal, supernatural, or ufological that you cannot explain? Look no further than the SOR Sightlines Report, brought to you by the Experiencers Support Association. This is Ryan Stacy, head of the Research Association, TESSA. Soon on the Spaced Out Radio website, you'll be able to file your reports and have them researched for you. We are independent and ready to help Spaced Out Radio listeners today.
A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thiemer. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans! It's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
Come hang out with Spaced Out Radio, where we own the night. This is Carl. You can follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio, and during the show, use the hashtag Spaced Out Radio to chat with us live. On Instagram, at Dave Scott SOR. On Facebook, give our page a like, Spaced Out Radio Show. SOR archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. Come join us, or I will come join you. See you at your window.
The Call of the Wild is in Vancouver. The Moose Vancouver is one of the hottest bars and restaurants in the city. Open until 2 a.m. nightly, the Moose will rock you like a hurricane all night long. Great food with everything on the menu at $6.95 near the corner of Nelson and Granville. Get your horns up and come rock with us. The Moose Vancouver, the official rocking bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Hi, this is Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel where we store all of the SOR show archives for free. And as an added bonus, every 2 weeks I'm posting brand new content on Cryptid Tales, where I will get into some of the spookier legends and folklore from around the world and tell the stories that go with them. Find us at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio and check out Cryptid Tales today. Drop a comment and let me know what you want to hear. See you there.
Hey, this is Canadian Paranormal Investigator Mike Moore. The third Wednesday of every month, I'll be teaming up with Dave Scott to bring you Ghosts of the Great White North. Each month, we will bring on guests from across Canada to discuss their ghostly encounters. Canada is a paranormal hotbed with stories you've never heard, so we're going to bring them to you. So get comfy on your Chesterfield, grab a donut, and join us, eh?
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Get your horns up with me on Spaced Out Radio. This is Ron Bumblefoot Thal. Come tune in to SOR where you can hear me rock out with Little Brother Is Watching, the official theme song of Spaced Out Radio. And then come on over to bumblefoot.com where you can find out about my tour schedule, my music, and everything else. Bumblefoot.com keeps you up to date on what I'm doing and the best way to stay in touch with my music and music camps. Sign up for my newsletter at bumblefoot.com and remember, Little Brother Is Watching.
Hi there, this is Geraldine Orozco from San Francisco's Bay Area Meditation. I invite you to join me the first Tuesday of every month with Dave Scott for Spaced Out Radio's The Spiritual You. In this fast-paced world we live in, it's time for you to take some time for you. We'll cover every possible subject from powerful meditation to healing techniques to your own intuition and spirituality. So come join us for The Spiritual You.
You're listening to Spaced Out Radio with Dave Scott. Follow Dave on Twitter at Spaced Out Radio and on Facebook, Spaced Out Radio Show.
Second hour of Spaced Out Radio is underway tonight. Thank you so much for joining us. I am your host, Dave Scott. We say hello to everyone listening in Ridgecrest, California, KZFX 93.7 FM, KDNF AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas, KDUN AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, WQEE 99.1 FM in Newnan, Georgia, and UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. On the digital side, hi to everyone listening in on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Great to have you with us. Remember, all of our archives are free. All you got to do is go to youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Just do old Davey the favor. Hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. When? When is your password? Do me a favor, Space Travelers. Use it wisely because we don't want anything bad happening to you if you use the password. Our website is spacedoutradio.com where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. You can pick up a great book at We Read the Night. Join the Space Travelers for $5 a month and Captain Shirk has us all up to date with the SOR Newswire. Tonight we are talking with Dr. Alan Greenfield. Secret Ciphers. Do they exist? How do they work? And, of course, his latest popularity is due to the series Hellier. Dr. Greenfield, welcome back.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
I have to ask, did you know right at the beginning of Season 1 of Hellier that you and your book were going to play such an integral role as to what's going on as they went out searching for goblins in Kentucky?
I didn't know, but I had two important impressions that came out of the first season. First of all, I had some contact with Greg, so I knew what direction he was going in. But the way they depicted, I think that may even be the wrong term, the way they documented a field investigation was so real. And the production values were so good. I'm just blown away by it. They could have said anything. They could have, on whatever they were doing. I've done a lot of field research in these things in times past, and that's the way it goes. For people out there who'll be seeing it, who've not done field research into any of these areas, that's the way it manifests. Hellier Season 1 is the real deal. Unlike all that stuff on the Wawa channel and the Woo Woo channel and the other channel and channels with name like Science that are very unscientific and the guy with the hair. I'm not going to mention any names, but those are rehearsed and canned. And I used to have I'm a very humor-oriented person. I used to have a routine where the two plumbers would go into a haunted house and they'd hear water dripping and go, I mean, if you're a field investigator, you're supposed to have some modicum of professionalism and not get scared. If you're going to get scared, then don't do it, because some of this stuff is pretty shaky. But they mentioned a couple of things in the first season that I thought, well, I don't know if there's going to be another season, but it's going to create a certain amount of curiosity about the work that I've been doing, and that's fine. This is something that I've always wanted to get. There are other things that I've done. I have a current book out from Blue Star Publishing called God Never Does the Same Thing Twice, which is not unrelated, but it's certainly not a book about ciphers and UFOnauts. I did the authorized edition of Frater Akkad's Liber 31. Akkad was Crowley's magical son until Crowley got tired of him, and then he was no longer the magical son, but it doesn't work that way. Sorry, Uncle Al, it just doesn't work like that. But in any case, I wasn't surprised, but when they expressed an interest in interviewing me for the second season, I thought, well, this should be very interesting, because these are actually knowledgeable people. I mean, they know the subjects. They're going to ask tough questions. I don't want to know the questions in advance. And I think I psychically know, actually not psychically, but I know one question they'll probably ask, but that's fine. It's not like I haven't heard it before. We wound up doing a 4-hour interview, which they edit and cut in such a way as actually it's superior to the 4 hours of, well, you can hear me now rambling along. If you wanted to cut this down to an hour program, it probably would have more bounce to it. And I don't think they left anything important out. And they showed me, their stuff too. So it was more of a conversation than an interview, and I thought it was terrific. And when I saw it, I thought, yeah, these guys are the real deal. And that's what I've been telling all and sundry. They are the real deal. And there's so little of the real deal in the visual arts, in film and television, and on YouTube, even more. Anybody can access that, but most of it is either very sincere but amateur, or it is not particularly sincere, and people just wanting to see themselves in a public light, and they're not at that school at all. So I can't speak highly enough, although if you go episode by episode, I'll tell you what I spotted and what I didn't, and they also gave me a copy of that, I guess it was an email that they got, and I don't have the email itself, but I do have the, the one mistake I made in the interview was they said, does the number 31 mean anything to you? Because it's scrawled across this thing with a set of digits and a couple of other cryptic, Kabbalistic numbers. And I said, well, I edited Frater Akkad's Liber 31, the authorized edition. So what I should have said was the much more obvious thing, given the context, that the other Liber 31 is Liber Legis, the Book of the Law, Crowley's Bible, if you will. And for some reason, I went to what I had edited rather than what was the foundation for much of contemporary magic, whether for good or ill is up to the individual to decide.
When you looked at Hellier the first time, and you said that Greg and Dana Newkirk and their team are the real deal when it comes to this, what makes you believe that? I mean, we've talked to them on the air. I know Greg and Dana personally. I was at a conference with them a few years back, and I found them to be highly respectful, high quality people, which is hard to find in this field. But when you say that they're the real deal in regards to what they're doing with Hellier, what do you mean by that?
I mean that my experience doing field investigations, and I've done the John Reeves case in Brooksville, Florida. I did the Hickson Parker case in Pascagoula, Mississippi. In fact, I had been out there investigating the Pascagoula River before they had their experience, because it's known as the Singing River, which is what the word Pascagoula means, I think, in Creek and Creek Indian language. And they went to Brown Mountain. I have been to Brown Mountain on 2 occasions and interviewed witnesses to the Brown Mountain Lights and more than the Brown Mountain Lights, the contactee type experiences. And I even had my own little, I guess you could call it Man in Black experience on one of my visits to Brown Mountain. And suffice to say, and I've done ghost hunting as well, suffice to say, what they do is what you see if you are on a field investigation. Same sort of thing happens, the same sort of, you have those moments where you're just trekking through the underbrush and nothing really is happening, and then you have these spooky moments. Sometimes you have more than just spooky moments, but the authenticity of what they're showing. I mean, they could have edited it in a different way and just made it more, choppy, adventurous, but they didn't. They made it real. And in fact, almost all the reviews that I've seen are very favorable. But I've seen a couple of negative reviews, and the negative reviews just don't get the point. They say, I was bored to tears because something isn't happening every 2 seconds. I'm parodying, but I mean, it doesn't happen that way. You really do have to trek through the woods, and I wish they would wear helmets and have a spelunker with them, but you really do have to go in caves and mine shafts or on tops of mountains. Gosh, I went up to the best viewpoint for the Brown Mountain Lights with Jim Mosley and Tim Beckley and Jim's little daughter at that time, Betty, on Christmas Eve, 1968, I believe it was. One thought that I had was, this is a hell of a way for a little girl to spend her Christmas Eve. But the road was very narrow. On one side was an abyss. On the other side was an abyss. And it was iced over. And this was not a four-wheel vehicle. This was Jim's car. And we went up to this location and we saw the lights at a distance from there. And then we crawled back down on this icy road. And I was sitting right, in the front seat on the so-called death seat on the right side, peering down at this abyss and looking at the road ahead. I mean, that's the way it goes. It's not so much that you saw anything dramatic. Yeah, I've seen the Brown Mountain Lights. But that it's at times dangerous. It's always adventurous. You may spend several hours waiting for something to happen, and then it happens. And then you interview somebody the same day or the next day that has had the same experience, only much closer and much better. You find out things from the locals, and you get awakened the next day in your hotel room by a man in black coming to your door. And all that stuff is real because I've experienced it. And that's the kind of thing that they convey. They also really hit something that I'm very interested in, although I don't have a final explanation for it, which is the number of synchronicities that occur when you're on the hunt for the what's it, whether it's fairies or goblins or, I think the terminology says more about the person who sees them than it does about the actual phenomena. What's a goblin? What's a fairy? I mean, the term's meaning eludes me, but it means little beings, what they used to call little green men. And then they saw that tree that was carved into the green man shape, and they sort of passed that one by. But, that's the way it goes. When I had this encounter with the man in black at my hotel room, I should have, buttonholed him or something and said, how did you know I was here? How did you know that I visited with Ralph Lale, the local contactee? Why are you dumping on him? Who are you? A bunch of things that something happened with me that I stopped being an investigator and started being, your typical credulous witness to a phenomenon. I don't know this guy's name. I don't know why he came there. He's a well-dressed guy in a dark suit, and he, all that I recorded was, why is he dumping on this local guy, calling him a moonshiner, which I believe he probably was. I mean, he's long dead, so I can mention that now. And, basically trying to throw me off the entire Brown Mountain Lights cases. And then he left, and I start to think, well, why didn't I ask this? Why didn't I ask that? Why didn't I stop him and say, who the hell are you, and what are you doing here, and how do you know that I'm here, and how do you know what room that I'm in? How do you know my name? Comes to the door with all of that information. And I don't leap to any conclusions about that. I don't think he was the CIA or the undercover. I don't know. But I do know that my mind got frozen in a certain sense, or mesmerized. The only other time I've ever had an experience of that sort was with a high-end Scientologist person, actually ex-Scientologist in fairness, but he had been at their flag location. To me, Scientology is a method of manipulating people's minds, and that's a very evil thing to do, in my personal opinion. And this guy, who had been thrown out of Scientology but had the extensive advanced education, got me to believe that I had banned him from a series of meetings, which I was during my tenure as an OTO Lodge Master. And for months, I was under that impression, and I was alibying, and then I was played a tape of one of those sessions that I had recorded because I did a lecture. And there was his voice asking questions, and I thought, it immediately came back to me. He was there the whole time. He was just doing whatever people that are taught the Scientology method do to make me have a selective amnesia. And something comparable to that was going on with this guy at, I think that was Linville, North Carolina, if I'm not mistaken, because the Linville Gorge is kind of very rough terrain, just overlooking Mount Arabia, Brown Mountain. No, it doesn't overlook Mount Arabia, but similar. There are similarities.
I got a question from Twitter coming in from Derek. It's a two-part. He is asking, Mr. Greenfield, have you seen all of Hellier's shows? If so, what do you think of yourself in the series, and do you have any theories about the phenomena that is going on?
Okay, those are very different questions. What do I think of myself? God, I've gotten old. That really is. The other one is the way I was leaning the whole time, it looked like I was the Godfather. So I was saying, well, the way to investigate these. But I wasn't doing that. That was unintentional, and probably just I was trying to be comfortable, and I was also watching their film their tape of the induction of a person who allegedly had not had a abduction experience, who developed one apparently from the hypnotic session, which, since I don't regard information obtained under hypnosis for a variety of reasons as A1 evidential, as opposed to things that are spontaneously remembered. It was interesting that you could induce somebody to think that. And I was very comfortable with the questions they asked, and I was very comfortable with the answers I gave, with the one exception that I already mentioned, that 31 should have immediately brought to mind the book of the law. But I have been 15 years out of that circle of people, and that's not the center of my consciousness now as it once was. Well, I don't know that it was ever the center, but let's say it was important to me. It was good. Now, what was the other question? I've completely forgotten.
All right, I got it right here. Just give me 2 seconds because I got to scroll back down to find it here. But it was about your role, and what do you think they are trying to find there? What do you think is happening there?
The analog would be the native peoples here when European explorers first arrived, or the cargo cults of New Guinea and their impressions of planes that had crashed there, landed there during and right after World War II. There is, which, by the way, one of my uncles was stationed there during that period, and it was and is an extremely wild area. But you learn a lot about local impressions from people who have had no encounters with a given other, and then they have encounters with them, and if it's not ongoing encounters, it becomes part of their mythology. And if the encounters are ongoing, there is clarification of what it is you're dealing with, but it modifies the original impression that you had to the point that it may have a break between them. In other words, perhaps the conquistadors were Quetzalcoatl, but Quetzalcoatl is a totally different thing as it has developed in Mesoamerican culture, even down to the present day, from the Spanish conquistadors and what their agenda was in Mesoamerica. So as the two things became manifest, they split. But they're of the same origin, I think. Quetzalcoatl was the white god that came from Europe, so maybe he was just some sailor that stumbled to America. If Thor Heyerdahl could do it with the Ra-Tu, it could have been done 1,000 times over history. And of course, if they don't go back or if they get sacrificed, the first two conquistadors who accidentally washed up on the shore near Tulum in the Yucatan were sacrificed.
I'm going to have to cut you off right there because we got to go to break here at the bottom of the hour. More on Hellier with Alan Greenfield right after this.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
Finish off your weekend and kick off your new week with me, Everett Thiemer, right here on Spaced Out Sundays. I'm going to bring you great guests, a little bit of snark, and plenty of information to think about. But don't worry, there's going to be plenty of woo as well. We are going to hit everything in the paranormal and supernatural, including the odd psychic Sundays. So tune us in on Sunday, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today. We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckard, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio, and while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a Space Traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Looking for something new to push your limits? Look Beyond the Spectrum, a new docu-series featuring some of the best researchers in the world when it comes to everything from UFOs, government cover-ups, and Bigfoot in the forest. Truth seekers like Steve Bassett, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, Richard Dolan, as well as others all chip in to bring their knowledge to you. Beyond the Spectrum can be found on Amazon as well as Tubi TV. Tell us what you think on our Amazon page.
From the heartlands of Canada to beards around the world, we know how to take care of you. Fill your follicles with the Mighty Moose Beard Oil. All our oils and balms are handmade and 100% natural ingredients because we care about your beard. And hey, Use the promo code SOR2019 and get your Mighty Moose beard oil today. You can check us out on our website, mightymoosebeard.com.
Hey, space travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
We passed the halfway point of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair at a snowy SOR headquarters. Thank you for joining us. Reminder, if you've missed most of this show or others, you can always go to our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. Pick up a great book at We Read the Night. Join the Space Travelers for $5 a month. And of course, Captain Shirk keeps you up to date on the SOR Newswire. Dr. Alan Greenfield is here tonight, the author of the Secret Cypher of UFOnauts. As we are talking Hellier right now, Dr. Greenfield, welcome back to the show.
I'm still very glad to be here, and it's wonderful.
Oh, we're glad you're here, too. Very glad.
You know, these little short shows that I do, you know, they say, what is the meaning of life? And then they're off the air. You know? This is much more refreshing.
Exactly. Well, we appreciate that. We appreciate that you have the time to go into detail. What do you think? What is your opinion of what they are trying to find? What kind of phenomena? It started off with, you know, looking for goblins in the caves of Hellier, Kentucky. It ended up being where it looks like they are going into some sort of ritualistic scenario here where really it has nothing to do with the UFOs. It has nothing to do with aliens or weird characters like Dr. David Christie or anything like that. This seems like a lifelong journey.
Yeah, I'm hoping that it is. I mean, that's, I think what they're doing, and it's not unique, but it certainly is exceptional, is they start out looking for one thing, but they're not afraid of changing course in mid-Atlantic, as it were, or mid-Pacific, if you prefer. They change course any number of times, not forgetting about the original premise that they were under, but going where the evidence leads. And that's what all investigators should do. If one is out chasing a cryptid through the Everglades, and one sees the UFO, you don't go, oh, well, that's not my field, and you shift gears and you say, is this connected to the cryptid that people are seeing around here, or is this an independent phenomena, or is this not a phenomena? You know, you have to go through a series of permutations and decide what the reality is, but you don't just write things off because they're not part of your particular fancy. And I think that's the essence of what they did. They followed the evidence, and the evidence in turn, and this is a key factor in my approach to these things, the evidence began to mold itself to the fact that they were willing to go where it led. So it led to perhaps very different places than it would have led if they had persisted in looking for goblins in Hellier, Kentucky. I think that the tip-off with Hellier is the first syllable. They were going to hell. And when you're going to hell, you're daring a lot of things. But they dared it, and then it shifted gears. So they shifted gears. That's why I said to them on the program, I think you're being guided by the secret chiefs of the Third Order, which is a magical concept, but for those people who are into Eastern philosophy, that's the equivalent of the bodhisattva in Buddhism, and a lesser extent in the Hindu tradition, and is the equivalent of the magical secret chiefs or the hidden masters or the there's a range of titles from different organizations, but they basically mean human beings who have reached a stage where they no longer have to be part of our consensus reality, but choose to remain as helpers to the human race, the guardians to the BSRF people, the masters or Mahatmas to the Theosophical people, same thing. They're just different titles for the same thing. And it seems to me that they are getting that guidance to an unknown destination, because I'm not them and I'm not going to the same destination they are, but I've been guided too by synchronicities and by shifting course and by not assuming that what I see is what I get. They're doing it right, and as long as they're doing it right, they'll get hints. Happy birthday, blue balloon, blue star balloon. I don't know if they hit on that, because I don't know if they're aware that one of my publishers is Blue Star Publishing, the other being Paranoia Press, which is Olaf's outfit.
Why them, though? Why do you think they were chosen? I mean, because this has taken years. I mean, since 2012, Greg and Dana have been receiving these strange emails. Why them?
I can only guess at that. They're relatively young. They're relatively young, but they are quite experienced with field research in certain areas. Now, they were willing to expand those areas. I think they started out as ghost hunters. Greg and Dana did, but even before they were married, they were working together as ghost hunters. And I think that group of people became a group of people in a similar way that the teen ufology people that I mentioned early in the program became ufologists who are still involved in ufology 50 years later. They worked well together. They were simpatico within what you can reasonably expect of human beings from diverse origins. And they seem to be ideal in terms of, I guess they were a good hire, if you know what I mean. If you're the personnel person at a company and you're interviewing people for a job, if you're good at what you're doing and the job is paranormal research, they're great candidates. I don't know that a lot of the other people who are comparably interested would be great candidates for that. They may not be the only ones, but they're the only ones that do really, really great documentary photography and are willing to document it, as it is, not spook it up with, are they aliens? They're aliens. I mean, they're just not on that page. I do think that where I differ from their stated notion of what's going on is, I don't think that the thing in the last episode, the ritual, was the ritual. I think that the entire experience is an initiation and continues. As long as they continue to do this, they will continue to get feedback and they will continue to get different aspects of this, and at some point it will become integrated, unless they get spooked or unless they just stop or unless they go into the wrong mine and wind up disappearing. I mean, there are lots of things that I don't know what the outcome will be. But my suspicion is, and I've said this to some of my fellow old hands at this stuff, which is, I think they're the next generation carrying on this work and carrying it to a new level that we never reached. And I'll stick to that. That is as close to a reason as I can give you. They seem like the right pick, and the show is its own biographical sketch of why they don't run.
That's probably the best way to put it. It's a biographical sketch.
Yep.
And they are chasing the answers that we all want to know, which is what very much interests me in regards to the whole aspect of what's happening with Hellier and everything along those lines. Do you think they're in danger? Do you think their lives could be affected by this in a negative way?
I don't want to discourage them. Of course there's some danger involved. I mean, there are physical dangers, like very early on, when I first saw Hellier season 1. By the way, I rewatched it on Amazon just before watching season 2, so that I would refresh my memory. But I thought, they're going into caves without any caving equipment, without even helmets. That's not a good idea. But I told them that, and they'll do whatever they're inclined to do. I worry more about Tyler in that respect but I suspect so do the rest of them. I mean, if a mine caves in, if you really are not skilled, you don't have any chance of surviving, and particularly if you don't have other people that know where you are. But are there dangers of Shaver mystery type stuff? I knew Shaver. Boy, there was a spooky guy. And do I need to recap what the Shaver mystery is all about?
Sure, for our audience, because we do have people listening in who have not seen Hellier yet.
Okay, well, the Shaver thing is part of the long genre of stories about the inner Earth. Now, I don't think that there's, in fact, I'm quite certain there's no inner Earth civilization, but Richard Sharp Shaver, no kidding, that was really his name, was a guy who in the 1930s started to hear voices. He was a welder, and he was hearing it when he turned his welding arc on. And from that, he wrote some material. Ray Palmer, the publisher, picked it up, and it became the sensation in science fiction circles in the 1940s. But it crossed a line that science fiction fans don't cross, except OK Dick, he managed to cross it, which is to say, this is not fiction, this is fact. Now, Ron Hubbard did the same thing, but Ron Hubbard appealed to a different audience and started a religion or a religious type organization. Shaver simply claimed these stories are true, and that was against the unwritten rules of science fiction. You cannot say this is real. Well, looking at it from the remove of a first year post-war baby boomer, that seems trite because so much of science fiction is predictive. The first movie I ever saw was Destination Moon, based on a Robert Heinlein short story. But basically, Shaver was saying these beings, these degenerate beings, lived inside the Earth, and they had inherited a very high technology from earlier civilizations and were constantly attacking surface people and also kidnapping them and torturing and eating them, apparently, on a regular basis. I don't think that's... and by the way, Ray Palmer thought the same thing that I'm about to say. I don't think he's dealing with the inner Earth. I think he's dealing with portals to other realities, and these are rather unpleasant realities. And, rather unpleasant is understating it. So, that being said, I would not go into one of those caverns or caves or whatever, you want to call them. A portal is probably the more accurate term, without a great deal of help, including people on the outside, and make sure in one way or another that there's a two-way portal. I just published something that is fairly well known from Rosicrucian circles tonight on my Facebook page about how to open the portal of the Adepti. It's a pretty safe one, so long as you close it when you're done. But if you go into one of these spooky other realities, you'd better be sure you can get back out, because some of them are very pleasant, some of them are erotic, some of them are neurotic, and some of them are absolute savagery. And if you're disinclined to credit Shaver's story, you should take a look at the statistics on people who disappear every year without a trace worldwide. And when I say without a trace, that means they don't ever show up again. I mean, there are plenty of people who just drop out. There are people who are kidnapped. There are people who are brutalized. There are people who are killed. That happens. But it doesn't explain a host of cases all over the world that, although they're particularly strong in heavily forested areas and in caves and in caverns and, whatever, they are in the tens of thousands every year. So they go somewhere. Now, they may all be going to different places. There may be natural explanations for it. But I tend to think maybe Shaver, although he had his geography a little wrong, because I don't think the Earth is hollow. In fact, I'm pretty sure that it's neither flat nor hollow. I don't want to disillusion anyone on either score. But I'm pretty sure these portals exist, and in fact, I'm certain that they exist. And with some precautions, I think, are the next generation of scientific exploration. Does that answer your question? Of course it's dangerous, but if they take it one step at a time, they're minimizing the danger. We didn't go to the moon without risk and without fatalities. That's just the same principle. The Curies in radium,
right?
They died from radium poisoning. That's they were dealing with something that they didn't know about, but they advanced the human cause. And then, of course, Dr. Salk discovered the polio vaccine and changed the world there. It didn't cause him any problems. I mean, there's risk, but there's also reward. And I mean, it's not stopped me. I was at one time part of the Illuminat press stable of writers, and Illuminat was really good until writers and publishers for Illuminat started dropping like flies of mysterious causes. Carrie Thornley, all of these were friends of mine. Jim Keith, and then ultimately Ron Bonds, the editor of Illuminat Press, who went back to the Illuminat BBS, and who died under the most mysterious possible circumstances and that effectively ended Illuminat Press. But there's some of us who have survived, so it's not universal. But I slept with a gun under my pillow for a couple of years there, as they were. It's just precautionary,
Alan, I want to ask you. So we only got about 4 minutes here, 4.5 minutes before we go to break at the top of the hour here. There was a voice in the mine shaft that was heard on Hellier 2. That was quite eerie, quite strange. What do you know about that?
Well, I hear it in exactly the same way they hear it, but which is the voice is saying, guys. But I have done a lot of dealing with homonyms in connection with the Book of the Law, because it was dictated blindly from a praeter-human source, according to Aleister Crowley, by his wife using a deep voice, according to some people, or his imagination, according to others. But be that as it may, there are a lot of things in it that you wonder how faithfully just hearing something will reflect what you're saying, because so many words in English anyway have homonyms, and they heard, and I heard this deep voice in the hollow of the mine shaft going, "Guys," while they were doing some what I would call scrying. But it occurred to me that could just as easily, given the nature of the whole case and the fact that there's one reveal after another, and just when you think you've gotten to the last curtain number 7 pulls aside and it's a new car. It could be Guise, Guise. I believe I told Greg about that, along with some other cryptic stuff. But you can't tell from the voice. It's like the riddle of Kayak from the Albert Bender case of many years ago, which is Kayak is spelled, that was his summoning word for the Men in Black that they gave him. And it's spelled K-A-Z-I-K. Well, did they write it down for him? There's no record of having written it down. So if it's pronounced Kayak, why wasn't it spelled K-A-Y-I-C or K-A-Y-I-K, or, so phonetically, in other words. But it's one of the weirdnesses that shows up repeatedly. And I would say Guise was not consistent with what was going on at that moment. But Guise, as in disguise, as in mask, is very consistent with what they were having, because they were having a series of reveals as they got deeper and deeper into the case. And it's just a thought. That's mine, for what it's worth.
There have been so many synchronicities that have happened throughout the whole Hellier series. And we've got about a minute here, and I know we can carry this into the next half hour. But with these synchronicities, what's the difference between a synchronicity and just a mere coincidence, in your opinion?
Well, you got into one of my more radical areas. I don't think there's any such thing as a coincidence. I think there are coinciding things in the universe, and they're always meaningful. I think they have to do with the basic structure of reality. And if you're on the path, so to speak, you're going to run into synchronicities just by default. In mathematics, there are things like the Fibonacci sequence and the entirety of chaos theory, chaos mathematic theory, not chaos magic theory, that deal with these things that seem to, if you will, be the programming of the universe. And if you're tuned into some particular aspect of that, you're going to get synchronicities, which Carl Jung described as acausal coincidences. And one of the examples that he himself cited, I don't know if I have time to do this, but let me see if I can. He and Freud were...
You know what? You hold on to that. Let's get into that when we come back from the break, because I think this is an important topic that we do got to get into. We'll stick with Synchronicities with Dr. Alan Greenfield, talking Hellier, right after this on Spaced Out Radio.
A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thiemer. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com.
The SOR Vault is open for business, and do we have some cool swag for you to pick up? All you have to do is head over to our website and click on the SOR Vault. You have a variety of cool logos to choose from, and put them on anything you want. T-shirts, hoodies, hats, coffee mugs, you name it, we can get it to you. So do your shopping by supporting the store you love. Get your Spaced Out Radio swag at the SOR Vault today.
For the price of 1 cup of coffee a month, you can become an SOR Space Traveler. The Space Travelers Club is a place where you can interact with other listeners, either live during the show or on our great forum. We want your stories, pictures, comments, and ideas. You'll get live video streams, exclusive content, and be a part of our newsletter. Stay in touch with everything SOR. The Space Travelers Club is just $5 a month at spacedoutradio.com.
Visit purpleplates.com today. For over 40 years, the Purple Energy Plates have been delivering amazing results for their many customers. Inspired by the great genius Nikola Tesla, the harmony, healing, and energetic effects of the plates have proven over and over to be beneficial and often miraculous to thousands of customers. Check their site for daily specials and choose from their many energy products. You won't be sorry. Visit them today at purpleplates.com.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at mightymoosebeard.com today.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio.
Hey, Space Travelers, this is John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. If you know anything about our website, you know we like to do things a little differently. We're not some faceless organization collecting money for a nebulous cause. Our donor dollars go directly toward life-improving items. Then we give those items directly to an underdog who needs it most. To become a donor with Spaced Out Radio's official charity, Chive Charities, just go to chivecharities.org/donate.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio, you can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
A timepiece is a reflection of who you are, and what better way to show off the real you than with an Escape watch? Escape is a lifestyle brand accessorizing your days and nights. Choose to escape and create the life of discovery that you deserve. Dream, play, unite with your own personalized Escape watch. Head to escapewatches.com. There is no time like the present to enjoy your escape. Use promo code SMF2017 for your 20% discount today.
we're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Would you like to connect with us? Head to spacedoutradio.com for all your latest show info. Now, back to Dave Scott and SOR.
Welcome back to the third and final hour of Spaced Out Radio tonight. I am your host, Dave Scott. Thank you so much for joining us, especially if you're listening in on UPRN 107.7 FM in New Orleans. AM 1030, KDUN, AM 1030 in Reedsport, Oregon, KDNF, AM 1560 in Dangerfield, Texas, in Ridgecrest, California, KZFX 93.7 FM, and WQEE 99.1 FM in Newnan, Georgia. On the digital side, hi to everyone listening in on Kingdom of Nye Radio and Revolution Radio. Great to have you with us. Remember, you can check out all of our archives for free at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. The Desert Clam has set the password for tonight in the SOR Space Travelers Club. When? When is your password? Use it wisely, Space Travelers, as the Clam sets a password each and every night right here on Spaced Out Radio. Our website is spacedoutradio.com, where we have a plethora of features for you. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. You can grab a great book at We Read the Night. Join the Space Travelers for $5 a month. And, of course, Captain Shirk has you updated on the SOR Newswire daily. We are introducing Dr. Alan Greenfield tonight. We have been talking about Hellier over the last hour. We're going to continue that. Right before the break, Dr. Greenfield, we were talking about synchronicity and how it seems to pop up quite a bit in Hellier. And you were going into a definition regarding Jung and Freud. I'd love for you to continue that.
Okay. This is sort of how the term synchronicity, as it's currently used, was created. It's from Jung's, well, it's arguable whether it's an autobiography or a biography, but it is from Memories, Dreams, and Reflections. Freud and Jung originally were part of the same circle, and then Jung began to go quite far afield from Freud. So there was a lot of tension between them. Anyway, they were arguing about something. The subject, I think they were arguing about telepathy, whether telepathy existed or not. And Jung apparently was a temperamental person, as others have described him. And he said that he got this sudden rush of saying to Freud, I am certain that telepathy exists, and to prove it, there's going to be a loud bang, which would not be telepathy, but a loud bang on the wall right now. And he said there was a bang that was deafening to both him and to Freud. They both heard it. And he realized, in some sense, that was a synchronicity, that at that moment he was certain that there was going to be a loud bang on the wall, and there was a loud bang on the wall, but he had no, precognitive abilities or psychokinetic abilities that were noticed at other times, so it was a synchronicity. Another one, he was with a patient talking about her dreams about flying insects, and as he was trying to dissuade her from thinking that this was an omen or an augur of something, a huge moth started banging on the window of his office. And that would be a minor synchronicity, but it's from little things like that the term synchronicity comes. It means acausal coincidence. I think all coincidences are acausal, and I think there's good evidence of that. In fact, I think we, in a certain sense, produce our own reality, and that has shown up in because it's dealing in an unknown area, that shows up in paranormal work of one sort or another all the time. I have a certain level of fame in ufology for saying there's no such thing as a UFO hoax. That is, if something starts out as a hoax, it winds up not being a hoax. And I have some particulars that I cite, but one of them is a story. Are you familiar with the late Jim Moseley? He's a good friend of mine, but he was he was a major mover and shaker in ufology throughout from the 1950s and until the turn of this century. He was the editor of Saucer News, and later the name was changed to a series of things that rhymed with news, and then he changed it to Saucer Smear, which was famous because it was sort of a humorous approach to UFOs. Anyway, I knew him from the age of 32 till he died at 82, and I never saw him not lighting one cigarette off of the other, and I never saw him sober, ever, in his whole life. But he was a wonderful guy, and a very intelligent, a Princeton man, actually, and a very wealthy guy. And there's a story that Gene Steinberg told me. Gene worked for Jim Moseley in New York when Saucer News had an office there during the peak of interest in UFOs, or I should say the previous peak of interest in UFOs in the late 1960s. And the way Steinberg related it to me was he was with Jim one night when Jim just got really rip-roaring drunk and decided to make a hoax phone call. As I said, he and Gray Barker were often, when they got together, it was predictable that they would do something of that sort. So he called an arbitrary town police department and said, "There's a flying saucer over your reservoir," and hung up, of course. And that was the Wanacue, New Jersey reservoir. And within hours of his making this totally hoaxed phone call, there was a UFO wave of substantial proportions around the Wanacue reservoir, where people would come from, from distant locations to see the UFOs that were manifesting around this reservoir. And that went on for, I don't know how long, a week, 2 weeks, whatever, but that is a case of a hoax becoming a reality in a certain sense. I've never done a hoax of any sort because I think that does muddy the waters, and I get amused by these stories because they're in the past, but a lot of people are just annoyed by them. But I did something that showed me that these things have a way of manifesting if you suggest that they manifest. And of course, you see that in Hellier with season 2, with the hypnotic pseudo-regression, I guess you would call it, which I think a lot of regression hypnosis actually, that's what it is. Although what to make of that, I think, is a totally separate question. But I decided sometime in the late 1960s, when it was possible to run an ad in the local newspaper, to organize a citywide skywatch for UFOs on an arbitrary date, not something particularly associated with UFOs like June 24th or whatever. It was an arbitrary date. And I expected to, and I gave out my home phone number because it was the 1960s and people were more trusting then. And actually, I may have given my office number now that I think about it, not my home number, because it was adjacent. But in any case, the calls started coming in exactly when I announced the beginning, and they stopped shortly after what I had announced as the end. I think it was something like 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. And there were not only sightings, there were good sightings. There were plenty of Type 1 sightings, and that is no surprise. But there were Type 2 sightings, close-up views of UFOs and distant landings of UFOs. And clearly, I had set this in motion in some sense, simply by saying, look up. Now, either you've got to say that there are constantly UFOs if you would only look up, or you've got to, everywhere, in which case it's all solved. We have been conquered by the aliens. We can all go home now, if they let us. Or we can say, if you suggest some phenomena that is beyond our consensus understanding of what's real and what isn't real, it will manifest. Another example of that, not mine, but there was a group in Toronto that was a parapsychology group, and they put out a book about this experiment they did called Philip the Imaginary Ghost, if I remember the title correctly. And I don't know if you've ever heard of that or not, but they created a ghost. They did seances, but this was seances for a person who had never existed. They had pictures of him, of this man. They had a description of his life in the 1700s and so forth. And they did the same things that you would do if you were trying to contact a discarnate human being. And sure enough, Philip came through. Now, I believe that what they were thinking was, well, this disproves survival. I think that was the direction they were going in. My feeling is reality molds itself to your expectations, and they had done their job all too well. They had created Philip. Philip might not have existed before, but he certainly existed by the time they were doing their third seance. And I recommend, if you can find a copy of that book, I'm pretty sure it only went to one printing. I wish I could remember the name of the group. They may still be around, but that was a pioneering study. In other words, I think we think of reality as nuts and bolts. And I think that reality is much more malleable than that. The whole thing about the dimensions, well, they're not some distant point like interstellar distances. According to reputable scientists, they are zero distance from where you're sitting and where I'm sitting right now. There is no meaningful way of calculating distance. So when they overlap into our reality, or we overlap into theirs, we really shouldn't be surprised at it. And that brings around to the whole concept of chaos magic, which essentially gives us the notion that if you create a portal, the portal is real. If you create it in a specific manner, the portal is real, and you can go through it, and it's a real portal, and you dissolve it in a real way. The only way to prove or disprove that is to experiment with it, and I've been yelling at people for 20 years now, 20 years plus, that you need to do that kind of experiment with whatever area you're looking at. If you're a big fan of Bigfoot, you need to try to conjure up Bigfoot and see what happens. Probably your first occasion of trying is not going to produce Bigfoot coming up to your camera and grinning or whatever. But if you persist in doing that experiment in appropriate locations, somewhere that's out of view and not distracted by city lights or whatever, you're probably going to experience something very close to what it is that you're searching for. Does that mean that it's not real? I don't think so. I think that there are a host of things that are real that we simply don't experience unless we invoke them.
Dr. Alan Greenfield is our guest tonight on Spaced Out Radio. Greg and Dana Newkirk also gave you a piece of paper that had some information on it. What did you take out of that?
I've got the piece of paper in my hand right now. It has some things on it that we've already discussed, like the 31, which I should have thought of the Book of the Law, but I thought of because it's Liber 31, written in Roman numerals most of the time. On this thing, it's just scrawled on this piece of paper, and I don't know the context of the piece of paper, but it's 31, which is a key thing in that the Book of the Law, Liber Alba Legis, is Liber 31. And Frederick Codd also wrote a book called Liber 31, which I happen to be the editor of. So when they asked me, does the number 31 mean anything to you? And, it was immediate response on that. But the meaning of 31 is deeper than that, because 31 in Hebrew Kabbalah, the original Kabbalah, not English Kabbalah, which is a whole different cipher with a whole different base, although the rules are the same. 31 equals the number of the word God. But if you reverse it, 13 is the number of the word lo, of not. And it's saying God and not, the riddle of God and not, which Frederick Codd wrote extensively about. So I think whoever wrote this down was saying this is true and untrue at the same time. And below that is written a long series of numbers, which they showed to me, and I think they did not prompt me. I don't remember exactly, but unless I'm misunderstanding, they thought it was latitude and longitude coordinates. And when Tyler went out to that location, he found the first balloon. Actually, it was the second balloon, but they didn't know about the first one at that point, that said, "Happy birthday." And I thought, well, and then a black helicopter flew over, shades of Jim Keith. So, and then he got lost, and then he got chased by the police, which in this remote area seems to be passably strange. I mean, he wasn't doing anything, out of line. And he gave them a reasonable explanation, and they literally took him in a parade to the county line. I mean, that just doesn't happen. But I don't believe this is a set of coordinates. I ran this, it looked like the kind of number that you would have, let's say, on a credit card or something. Well, it didn't fit the number of digits for a credit card, or I think I tried 2 or 3 other things. And then it occurred to me, wait a minute, the various delivery companies have a long series of numbers that you check if you want to track a delivery. And sure enough, I found an obscure delivery company that had this exact number. And I did send this to Greg because that's my feeling that it's a tracking number from a Canadian source. And if you'll remember that when this whole thing started, they were living in Canada, in Toronto area, which that seems to be what it is, because the likelihood, I don't know how many digits this is, but the likelihood that a long string of digits is going to be anything other than you type it in. Maybe I'll do that right now in real time.
Sure.
Okay, so get out your pencils, fellow members of the 1957 Secret Squadron. It's 360258190 6840. And I'm just put that number on Google, pressed enter, and okay, it didn't come up this time, but nevertheless, it came up with two services, one being this little delivery service in, let's see if I can get it to come up with their tracking number. One more experiment.
All right.
Track a package. Now, this is a really good service. Am I going to write this whole thing again?
I got it written down if you need it.
That definitely is not what I want. Okay, so why don't you do that, and that way I can look at the keyboard and be sure that I get it right instead of trying to look.
You said it was 3600258.
Check.
190 6840.
6840. Okay, let me look at the number again just to make sure.
We only have about a minute left here.
It won't take a minute. It'll either be there or it won't. Find carrier. No, my computer's doing weird things. I told you that would happen. Before the show, I said something weird will happen with electronics. Did I not?
Yes, you did.
And sure enough, okay, let's see. Come on, baby. I'm on the air. Come on, baby. Google, don't desert me now. That never happens. Honestly, that just never happens to me. Okay, why aren't you finding... Well, maybe I've got too many things running on here at the same time. I can't take that off, and if I take that off...
Well, why don't you practice that when we while we go to break here? And you know what? For our audience, Dr. Alan Greenfield has agreed that he would love to stay on the next half hour, so we're going to keep him. Go the distance with Dr. Greenfield tonight on Spaced Out Radio, Synchronicities, and more on Spaced Out Radio. Coming up with Dr. Alan Greenfield.
Hey, Spaced Out Radio fans! It's John Resig, founder of the Chive and Chive Charities. Our goal is to make the life of veterans, first responders, and those with rare medical conditions 10% happier. We do this by donating one grant item, ranging from vans to therapy programs to prosthetic limbs, to those who need it most. To contribute to Spaced Out Radio's official charity, head over to chivecharities.org and become a donor today.
A little bit of science, a little bit of skepticism. Add a dash of snark and you have the makings of Spaced Out Sundays with me, Everett Thiemer. Together we will look into the reality of the paranormal with an open eye and rational thought. Oh, did I mention there'll be plenty of woo as well? Your time spent with Spaced Out Sundays will make the night even better. The chat rooms are open, 9:06 p.m. Pacific, 12:06 a.m. Eastern, right here at spacedoutradio.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Hey everybody, the SOR Space Travelers is open. For just $5 a month, you can hang out with Dave and our crew privately in our members-only section. With your signing, you'll receive newsletters on what's going on with Spaced Out Radio. You'll have direct contact with the host during the show in our chat, live streaming videos, and a great forum for your posts and more. Become a space traveler now at spacedoutradio.com.
Hello, this is your guitar man, Ron Bumblefoot Thal, and I have to tell you, I love the response I get for Little Brother is Watching from Spaced Out Radio fans. It's amazing how music can inspire and make people think deeper about what's going on in the supernatural world. You can head over to my website, bumblefoot.com, to check out my music, my guitar workshops, my touring, even check out some of the hot sauces that I'm working on. And make sure you keep on listening, because with Spaced Out Radio, you know Little Brother is watching.
Every night on Spaced Out Radio, we have places for you to hang out. Hi, this is Carl. Join our SOR Space Travelers group on Facebook for live chat. On Twitter, using hashtag Spaced Out Radio. You can also join us in our Spreaker chat room. Check us out on Instagram at Dave Scott SOR. All of our archives are free on YouTube at Spaced Out Radio. By the way, I'll be watching you at your window until you do. Bye!
Looking for a place to advertise at a very reasonable cost? Look no further than Spaced Out Radio. SpacedOutRadio.com has an advertising tab that you can click to check out our daily, weekly, and monthly packages to play on the radio, or our website including social media. From commercial spots to banners, we have it all. Check out our competitive pricing today.
You wanted new SOR gear, and now you can have it. The SOR Vault is fully stocked with t-shirts, hats, hoodies, mugs, and everything in between, with great logos for you to choose from. So head on over to spacedoutradio.com, click on the SOR Vault, and go shopping. Pricing is quite affordable, and you can look good representing your favorite show. So go to our website and pick up your new SOR wear at the SOR Vault today.
We all know on Spaced Out Radio we love a good beard and mustache, so why not take care of your facial hair with Mighty Moose Beard Oil? Made in Canada, we're taking care of beards and stashes around the world. We use 100% natural ingredients with our oils and balms to make your whiskers feel silky smooth. Use promo code SOR2019 at MightyMooseBeard.com today.
Move over, brother, and let me own Saturday night.
This is Rich Giordano, and I'm inviting you to tune on in to Spaced Out Saturdays starting at 9 p.m. Pacific, 12 a.m. Eastern, where I'm going to bust open the lids on everything paranormal. Why? Because we want answers, and I'm the guy who's going to deliver those answers to you. Join the chat rooms, and we'll see you this Saturday. Just be there. No, really.
We're adding to the entertainment online for Spaced Out Radio. I'm Amber Beckrud, and I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and check out Cryptid Tales, where I will take you on a journey into some of the strangest legends and lore from around the world, relaying the stories to you of the strange creatures and experiences that people have had throughout time. You can find Cryptid Tales at youtube.com/spacedoutradio. And while you're there, don't forget to check out our free archives and leave a comment. See you there.
Heading to Vancouver and looking for a night on the town? The Moose Vancouver is the bar that never stops rocking until 2 a.m. every night. The Moose has great food with everything on the menu from $6.95 to $8.95. Fantastic, vibrant staff and rock and roll that will bring you back to when the music was real, the hair was long, and the guitars were rocking. Get your party on at the Moose Vancouver, the official party bar of Spaced Out Radio. At spacedoutradio.com, we have a little bit of everything for you to stay up late. So while you're there, check out our SOR Newswire, where our team brings you stories of the weird and strange to the WTF from around the globe. News on Bigfoot, UFOs, paranormal, Darwinian-type crime tales. It's the stories that the mainstream media usually won't touch. Well, we got them all on the SOR Newswire, only at spacedoutradio.com. We've rounded third. We're heading for home tonight on Spaced Out Radio. I am your host, Dave Scott, sitting in the captain's chair of SOR headquarters. Thank you so much for joining us. Reminder, if you've missed most of this show or others, you can check out our free archives at youtube.com/Spaced Out Radio. Do me the favor, hit that subscribe button. Our website is spacedoutradio.com. We got a plethora of features for you there. Rock out to Bumblefoot, do a little shopping at the SOR Vault. You can grab a great book at We Read the Night. Join the Space Travelers for $5 a month. And, of course, Captain Shirk has your news updated daily. However, we're skipping the news tonight as Alan Greenfield is still with us. And we are talking Hellier and
You say
ciphers.
I'm not news?
Oh, you're beautiful news.
Yes, I
You're
am.
beautiful news, though.
Yes.
You're up close and personal. All right, right before the break, you were trying a code, a cipher, and you were Googling it.
Yes. And it came up with this place in Hong Kong, but it also said it was outdated. And I think what happened is when I tried that number in July, or June or July, whenever they did the interview with me, it was an active number, and in the period since, which is considerable, it has expired, so I'm not able to bring it up. However, it is available somewhere in the Wayback Machine, because I'm trying to find an old, I don't ever throw anything away, an old letter to Greg where I sent him this information. Oh yeah, that's his letter to me, so yeah, he wrote me about these. He got the guy who met Terry Orist when he was a kid. Not Terry when he was a kid, but this guy was a kid. And sounded like Terry to me. There was one difference, but, he was a kid at the time, so he thought he was in some right-wing militia, and Terry was a militia person, but he was left very far to the left wing. Very, very far. Further than I dare say. And so was I. We were all young once. Most of us, anyway.
Alan, I wanted to ask you about Terry Rist. You just brought him up. Now, Terry Rist...
Wait, I found it. I'm sorry, but I found it. Canada Post. The number is the number of Canada Post, which their phone number is, wherever it is, 1-866-607-6301. If you want to contact them and confirm that Alan, I got this because I went back to Greg's letter, and I'm going to tell you what the date on this is, so that, and I signed it, Alan Greenfield, Boy Scouts of America, retired, which I guess is true. It was June 21st that I did this, 2019. way back in last year. I mean, he's probably got a copy of this too, but it drives me crazy when I say something is true and it's not. Okay, what were you?
Well, just in regards to Terry Wrist, this is a name that has come up quite a bit, this mystery man who's an alleged Vietnam veteran who seems to be quite involved with trying to create this whole mystery that Greg and Dana Newkirk and their team with Hellier are trying to solve.
Well, I'll give you what I know, and that's about as much as I can do, because I knew him for about a 2-year period. He was, like I said, he was he was into radical politics, and he came to be associated with the radical political group that I was associated with. Now, none of the local members of that group, the name didn't bother them because everybody in that group had an assumed name. It was a precaution because of some bad things that had happened to some of our associates north of the border, and we decided to take. So I know some of their names, some I don't. Terry came into the group with the name Terry, so I have no idea, you didn't ask. It wasn't a polite thing to do in those circles. Anyway, the other people in the group were interested in political stuff and not in any of this other stuff. And when I initially met Terry, he was clearly, that was an interest of his, but not the only interest. And I don't remember exactly how it happened, but I discovered, or he discovered, or we both discovered that we were mutually interested in all this other stuff that we've been discussing. So we got to be, I would not say bosom buddies, but reasonably good friends. And I realized he had a lot of knowledge. He had apparently visited Richard Shaver at one point, and I knew Shaver, and but he knew less about ufology than me, but he knew more about some of these other subjects. And I said, would you sit down for an interview? And he was a little skittish about that, but I had just scored a major coup. I had interviewed the late, great Kerry Thornley in what turned out to be an interview that you can find online now as a book. It's a book-length interview. I think it was done at Euless Lodge over a 3-day basis. And Kerry was more talkative than I am. Terry was not. But I got him loose enough to do an interview. And apparently he liked the way it went, although he took a couple of jabs at me. So I said, would you like to continue this? He said another time, and a few weeks went by, and I interviewed him again. And again, I only saw him during these interviews outside at my then home, and in the political group. And that group is scattered to the winds. I know 2 people who were in that group who are still politically active but uninterested in this sort of thing. I'm sure they would remember Terry, but or they would be willing to talk about him. It became sort of academic because apparently the Newkirks found this guy that somewhat paranoid guy, but nevertheless the interview is there that he had met Terry what sounds like the period shortly after he left Atlanta. What happened was I had been the lodge master of the local OTO lodge, but I had signed on for 3 years and 3 years only. I dislike having positions of responsibility. And I went down to my hometown, Augusta, to write Secret Cypher, the UFOnauts, as it turned out. Actually, I pretty much wrote both books, Secret Cypher and Secret Rituals, pretty much as one book originally. Around, I guess this was 1995, could have been 96. That was an important year in Atlanta because the Olympics were here. So it was, it was a memorable period. Terry had left town before the Olympics got here, and I had loaned him I had some rare copies of Richard Shaver material going back to the 1940s, and Shaver had sent me some of his rock art, and I loaned those to Terry, but he was gone by the time I got back, and I don't expect to get that stuff back anytime soon. And I've had no contact with him since then. I think people, that's the whole story as far as I'm concerned. He mentioned a couple of things about his past, that he had been in Vietnam, but actually he seems to have said to or in the presence of this guy that they interviewed on camera that seemed a little shaken by the interview. I don't know what the deal was there. And he also was afraid of Terry, which I can understand. He was something of he had a militant atmosphere about him, but the one thing that guy definitely was wrong was he was not in a militia group, unless the whole time he was in Atlanta he was posing as a far left-winger, but was really a militia type, in which case all bets are off about his past or anything else. But he had told me that he didn't use the term tunnel rat, but he said he had used explosives in Vietnam. I never heard him use a slur. That was not the one that I had never heard before that's on this piece of paper, SLUF, whatever that may be. And there are other terms that were used by the heroic American and Aussie forces protecting the lives of the Vietnamese, which were racial pejoratives that I won't use here. And I never heard him do that. But of course he was in a group where that would have been politically totally incorrect. So, and he was a smart guy. And that's all I can really tell you about him, because that's my total contact. So when there was this revived interest in the book, I didn't know what to say, because that's about all that I know. So, I did run across an article that he wrote for a local magazine, but it has nothing whatever to do with strange phenomena. It's a somewhat Marxist view of history, is what it
right.
is.
But with Terry, why would he come out of the woodwork to take relatively unknown paranormal researchers at the time to take them along this tour? I mean, we don't even know if Terry Wrist is alive, is dead, is even a real human being. We don't even know his real identity if it is Terry Wrist.
I can only guess at that, which is he did share the range of interest. That's how we, became acquainted, and that's how I got those interviews. I mean, you can tell from the interviews, he knew his stuff, and, as of the mid-1990s. I assume when he left here, he didn't give up those interests, but he was never, I've never seen anything in print by him, unless it's under, his, whatever his real name is or some other pseudonym. To my knowledge, he's never contributed to any UFO or paranormal or cryptozoologist names of magazines or online presence or whatever. So I don't know. But he seems to have been, this is a guess, watching and seeing the older generation of investigators, to be blunt about it, die off. And there's a relatively few of us still around and hale and hearty, and may we be around for a long time, but may have just, I don't know, maybe he did a tarot reading, or, I'm guessing, something that said, this group of people need guidance. But for all I know, And I'm glad that Hellier is out there. For all I know, they're not the only group that he's contacted. They're just the only ones that have come to my attention. I mean, I have 5,000 subscribers on my Facebook page, and that's the limit you can have. So, whether he's been in touch with any of the other people on my list, or whether he follows my list, or whether he's on my list under another name, I wouldn't know, because when you have 5,000, it's not like Zuckerberg calls it friends. I call them subscribers, because a few are personal friends, some are really close friends, some are ex-spouses, but most of them are people that are just interested in reading what the long rant I put up every day. So, I don't know. I mean, you would need somebody who has known him for a longer period of time to be able to do more than I did. Like, I did that much longer interview with Kerry Thornley, but I never socialized with Kerry. Kerry was an elusive guy. He wrote he co-wrote the what was it called? The Bible of Dystopians. I forget what it was called, but it had it had an influence on the Subgenius Foundation. They're more or less too frivolous for my taste, but that's fine. Kerry was interested in some of the political stuff and hung around in the same neighborhood, which is the old Atlanta hippie neighborhood, and was a famous writer and a dishwasher, and lived with his mother, as far as I knew. And that was, he died early too, and I've heard various things about the circumstances under which he died. But did I socialize with him? Did I really know him? No. I knew his opinions based on that interview more than anything that I ever exchanged with him at any other time, because it consisted of, he'd hand me a leaflet as I walked by, a permanent universal rent strike. I remember that one because it struck me as bizarre and it ain't going to happen. But that was the sort of thing Kerry did. There are people that I've touched bases with that I can tell you everything there is to know about Gray Barker, more than you want to know, actually. But or Jim Mosley, or Gene Steinberg, or Dave Halpern, who does an excellent UFO blog on Blogger, which nobody seems to read anymore. And I don't mean his blog. I mean, the Blogger platform. And the people that I knew, and Rick Hilberg, people that I knew very closely that I was involved with are mostly people that were also longtime personal friends. And some of them, when I say Tim Beckley is my oldest friend, I mean in two different ways. One being that I've known him since 1962. So you know somebody that long, you know a great deal about him. I can still recite his mother's home address, although I think she has. Yeah, I remember home addresses that go back to when we didn't have zip codes. We had zones in the U.S. of A. And so that you can tell that the address, it's no longer their address, but NICAP was located at 1536 Connecticut Avenue in Washington, D.C., which is pretty funny if you've ever seen the original movie, The Day the Earth Stood Still, because that's where Klaatu is shot down at the corner of DuPont Circle and Connecticut Avenue. And the joke that was running in ufology at the time was, well, he shot him when he was on his way to seek sanctuary at NICAP. But, the timing is wrong, but dark humor. Never mind. Let's move on.
We only have a couple minutes left with you tonight. This is a show that is completely flown on by, and I hate when that happens because there's always so much more that needs to be asked or something that needs to be said. But regarding the Hellier experience that people are having and that you are having with people now checking out your research, does this open up the doors to more interest and intrigue into what the variables of the occult really are when it comes to the paranormal?
Well, you can't read the complete Secret Cipher of the UFOnauts without getting two things of value, I think, that, minimally. One is the cipher itself. If you work with it, strange things are going to happen for you, strange and wonderful things, hopefully. The other thing is, back when I did that and got a lot of critique, not in reviews or anything, but from movers and shakers in the occult world, is I blend directly and with no apology the occult world, which tends to be somewhat secretive, though not as much as some people seem to think, and the world of ufology. And you can't read it without, overlapping those, and that's what I want to happen. There will be no... Jean Duplantier from Willowdale, Ontario, supposedly quit ufology many years ago, and I remember exactly what he said at the time. He said it's like a long walk down an endless tube. Well, what I try to do is to get out of that tube and go at right angles to that reality. If we're never going to solve this extended mystery across various platforms, so to speak, then it's time to revise what we're looking for, and that's what I try to do. That's my entire work, and if people get that out of that book, or God Never Does the Same Thing Twice, which is not about God, it's about what I call, Jesus and Aleister Crowley wrestling.
My friend, it is that time where I got to wrap things up. Dr. Alan Greenfield, thank you for coming on Spaced Out Radio tonight. You hold on for a quick second. We got Mr. Ron Bumblefoot Thal rocking in the background with Little Brother Is Watching. Bumblefoot is the official music of Spaced Out Radio, rocking us in and out of every single show. Get your horns up for the guitar god himself. Special thanks to everybody listening in our chat rooms, the SOR Space Travelers Club on our website, and hashtag Spaced Out Radio on Twitter. Remember, this show is copyright by Spaced Out Radio and SOR Media Ventures Limited. Thank you so much for listening in with us tonight, because together, my friends,
make a mistake, we're watching.
We own the night. Mr. Bumblefoot, we need a favor. We need you to take us home. Have a great night, everybody. Bobby J. Gallo and his haunted family story tomorrow night on the Mighty SOR. Stay tuned. We'll see you tomorrow. Good night.